Okay, so good morning. Good morning. We are so glad to have you guys. Um,
Welcome.
we
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
have Miss Charity and Andrew here with us today. Right now, they are stationed at Vance Air Force Base. And could you guys tell us a little bit about, you guys and, your position and all of that good stuff?
My friend.
Okay. Well, currently I'm a T6 instructor pilot at Advanced, just like you said, um, working in the 71st Ops Group, and beautiful wife from crazy 3-year-old son right now, Christian, and that's it.
Yeah. Um, we also have an 8-year-old Pomeranian, so he keeps our 3-year-old busy sometimes. But yeah, we're from Columbia, South Carolina. We met in high school, so we're high school sweethearts. So we've been together for 15 years and married 10 years. Married to the military, I like to say, for 10 years as well. And yeah, so I actually have a bachelor's in business administration, and then my master's in social work. And I am a stay-at-home mom turned blogger. So I actually blog as well. My blog is called A New Mommyism, and it's to encourage and uplift moms.
Okay, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
So, today we're talking about marriage and military. I thought you
Yes.
guys would be the perfect, couple for this topic. A lot of times, when dealing with the military and marriages, this can be a big conflict in the marriage, with the time and the workload and all of that stuff. So, we would love for you guys to just share your hearts with the community
Yeah.
as far as what that looked like for you and some tools that can be helpful.
Yeah, for
The floor is
sure.
yours.
Okay. So, hold on. So, Andrew and I, we come from both from South Carolina, but different backgrounds as it relates to our experience with the military. So we did the high school sweetheart thing, then we did long distance in college for 4 years. And a couple weeks after we graduated, Andrew proposed, and we were married that September, right? So I didn't consider military life. Like, what does that mean, right? My experience with the military was it was limited. My dad, my biological father, he was part enlisted Army, and also my stepdad. But by the time I came around, they were already out. So I didn't
Right.
really have any experience, and I didn't think about the importance of knowing something about the military. I just love this man. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, our love is going to be enough. I didn't consider that it was a different lifestyle or that it would be such a big change. Like, I understood that, sure, we're leaving and we're going to go to a different state, but I didn't think about the culture and even in the officer culture, the pilot culture, everything.
Mhm.
There's different nuances. I was just like, okay, our love is enough. Like, I mean, even our
Yeah,
rings
yeah,
have our love engraved in it. Like, we have the engraved. But
yeah,
yeah, I just didn't know that it would be. I didn't consider the challenges.
yeah.
I just didn't.
Mhm. And I would say I didn't have the traditional military brat experience when I was growing up. My father was in the army, retired, enlisted, but I always lived in South Carolina. I went to the same schools, had the same friends throughout my younger life, so I didn't have that true military brat. You're constantly traveling experience, but I was still exposed to it. I always tell people that my father was a drill sergeant, but he never brought that home. Because when I tell people
Mm.
that, they always say like, "Ooh, that must have been rough," and that just wasn't the case. He was always fairly quiet and reserved, and never brought that home. Um, so with that, I still had exposure and experience to the military, and I knew that it would be relatively tough or could be tough on a marriage. So I know when I was going through school, going through ROTC, and military life was in our future, and especially once I started to really internalize that, hey, I think this is the girl I want to be with for the rest of my life. I should probably tell her just what the experience is going to be. So I know it was a lot of prep, if you will, of just having those tough conversations of like, hey, I just want you to know what you're getting yourself into with all of this.
But you can't prep. You
Right.
cannot prep.
Yeah.
I just it's so interesting because it's like you can read whatever you want to. He told me like, okay, so he did pilot training at Laughlin Air Force Base, and that's in Del Rio, Texas. It's on a border town. We're from Columbia, South Carolina. Okay, there's just a big variety of different people. There's lots of things to do. The beach is like 2.5 hours away. You can do food to everything, right? So he told me a little bit about Laughlin, but no, you can't prep. So anyway, so our honeymoon was, we got married and then we did cross country from South Carolina to Texas. That was our honeymoon, and we had fun. And he told me, like Laughlin is good, Del Rio's cool. And so I didn't think about anything. I just was like, we're gonna have fun. We're gonna start a new life together, etc. Right? So we drive and we get to Del Rio, Texas, and he's like smiling, driving around. I'm like, what you smiling for?
That's an exaggeration.
No, he was smiling, happy with the, and of course, like, I respect the culture and everything, but it was different. There is one stoplight there, one Walmart, literally, and it just wasn't what I expected. So I feel like, reality really set in once we got there. We were driving around and I was just like, oh, waterworks, just Lord, what is going on? Like, and he's like, what's wrong? Like, but yeah, you don't really realize, like, there's just harsh realities that set in once in any marriage, right? But for us, our like reality moment was when we got to that first assignment, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. You have to realize with my family, in a way I grew up, most of my family was all from New York or spread across the country. And it was just me and my parents in South Carolina. And we always went to go visit our family, or our family would come and visit us. Not the same for Trinity. All of her family was from South Carolina, constantly surrounded, no more than 20 minutes drive away. So we get married. We drive across the country. That's fun. She gets to see new things for a week. And then we are in essentially a Mexican border town where there's not very much. The Walmart or the H-E-B is the most happening spot. And it's a huge culture shock with that. So even after having those tough conversations and explaining, hey, you're going to be following me around for what could be 20 years, that was still pretty rough for her to experience. And me just trying to manage all of that in terms of expectations and just, okay, we're newlyweds, we're a weekend, and she's totally away from her family, and then now I have to be the provider and take care of everything. So there's definitely some challenges with that for sure.
Yeah. I think you mentioned expectations. I think there were unspoken expectations. I think
For sure.
that is when, nowadays we know we have to speak those expectations,
Absolutely.
because if you have unspoken expectations, that's communication challenges, and that just leads to all kinds of gripe and issues in your marriage and in a relationship. So I think that going into it, I really wanted to make sure I had my independence. That was important to me. And then I was just trying to learn, like, what does it mean to be a military spouse? So kind of looking around at other spouses and trying to learn that. So, we were young. So, everyone's experience is unique. Ours is unique because we were just out of college. My independence was very important to me. And I had literally just graduated college. A few months later, married my husband, and then I was across the country and didn't know what it meant to be a military spouse. So I feel like within that first couple of weeks, I was like, oh, I need a job. So I got a job immediately. And thankfully, you know, it was in my career field. I started in human resources very quickly. But I still just was kind of confused as to like, how do I do this officer wife thing? It was just, I didn't have any examples, you know? And so then I looked around me and everyone was doing it in a way that I was like, oh, I can't do it that way.
Yeah. Like, this ain't me. Like, hold on,
Right.
this ain't me.
Right. And that was a challenge too in itself, because I was looking at them, looking at myself, trying to figure out what Andrew's expectation was. We weren't talking about it. We didn't know any better to talk about it. So we were just like, okay, well, I'll just go to, you know, some of these spouse meetings and try to see what they say. And it didn't work. Like, we were in pilot training. So some of the spouses, you know, they would have flashcards written for their husbands. They would know the material better than their husbands. And I'd be like, well, I'm at work all day and I'm not interested in knowing how to fly an aircraft. So that's not how I do it. And it was just, I was just trying to find my footing. Like, okay, how do I do this? And I was assuming that he expected something from me that he didn't expect. And it really didn't take until like we were in 3 years in, because we were in Charleston by the time you were like, you don't have to go do that. You don't, there's no requirement for you. And he said, I don't expect that from you. Whoa. Like, I was like, oh, okay.
A game changer.
Right. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do my own thing. Like, but it's a big deal. And then we also have a unique experience because we are, you know, minorities in the surprise. We're minorities in the Air Force.
For sure.
But then there's a whole different animal with we're minority officers than minority, you know, pilot family. So it just, the deeper you get down in the weeds, the more, I mean, we're not alone, but you know, as far as the brown faces you see, it's just different.
Yeah.
There was I'm sorry. Yeah.
No. Go ahead. You good.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges. So I think the Air Force does, or the military just in general, does a really good job of trying to take care of the families, right? So when we get to most bases, especially UPT, they're like, hey, join the spouse network, be part of the spouse crew, and do that thing. So that's what we did, right? Because she's away from home. Let's try to find who your unit or who your tribe is going to be, and let's start making connections. But again, what she was alluding to with just the challenges involved with that of like-minded individuals or different cultural challenges, it's very different. Especially when you have people who have always been in the military, their grandfather, grandmother, whatever it may have been, and we just simply didn't experience that. They've been flyers all their life. They've been a huge officer family, and we're showing up, and we're just like, what are we? I know I'm supposed to fly. I have my job in terms of just learning how to fly and going through training, but what is she supposed to do? So we're joining these groups. They're telling us like, hey, you should be involved in this. And it's like, I really don't want to do any of that. Again, just going back to her being super independent and wanting her own with all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I won't go in. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Talk about a little bit about being a minority in the field that you're in. What was that like?
For me, so it's very complex. I'd say it's not a very simple answer to any of that. However, all of the squadrons flights, the community that I've been in, everybody, I would say that we pride ourselves on. It's just a simple question of, are you a good pilot? Are you good? For lack of better terms, do you suck? No. Or if I'm not great, I want to suck less often than everybody else because everybody's not doing so good. Sorry. But So I think that's where we pride ourselves. Just, hey, are you a good pilot? And then at that point, we can start making judgments on decisions based off of you. That being said, I also understand that there's not very many people that look like me. And I don't see a lot of people that look like me. So that, again, comes with its own challenges, whether that's based on cultural indifferences or just misunderstandings, quite frankly, because, again, there's not very many of us for that. So I'd say ultimately I've had a overall positive experience with all those things, but there's definitely some challenges that go with it. I know I'm being very vague about it, but ultimately it's been a very positive experience, and I've never had any question about my squadron mates or anybody having my back for those things, but it definitely comes with its own challenges.
Right. You want to piggyback off of that?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I love my husband because he can be so politically correct about things, and I love him for that. Yes. So, I mean, you know, when you are the only one, the only woman, the only person of color, the only whatever, right? There are challenges that come with that, right? Just even just looking around the room and not seeing someone who represents you is a challenge in itself. But as a spouse, well, you know, whenever we go to a new place, my husband, he has a built-in support system, right? His squadron mates, they all fly together. They are all there with a common goal. And so it's kind of built-in support. Like he said, their focus is on flying, right? It's different for spouses. You already are trying to find your footing, but you also are combating walking in and being the only brown person in the room, right? And so we all have unconscious bias, right? So just having to just work around other people's biases, your own biases, it comes with the package. And I would say definitely when we were younger, we didn't know how to navigate that. So, you know, people make insensitive comments, right? And I feel like in the beginning of our marriage, that was a really big problem. We were young. And I think neither one of us knew how to address it, right? I was young when I was younger. I was spicier. And so I would just be angry if there was insensitive comments made, you know, around culture, race, or whatever. Which, you know, I'd be like, hey, you need to say something, you know, you need to fight for us or whatever. Just not knowing how to challenge, how to handle it. Nowadays, you know, I know better when you know, I know how to properly handle it in a more of an educated way, right? But yeah, that is definitely something that will always, I'm sure, always be a challenge that we have to combat. This thought of, well, I have to, it's unfortunate to say, but having to combat stereotypes. I have to prove stereotypes wrong. You know,
for sure.
if people say something insensitive, I have to correct them. I'm not a teacher, right? It's not my role or my responsibility to teach you. But if you say something silly, for example, like, oh, well, do all Black people eat fried chicken? Like, you know, come on, you know? So like, it's just having to constantly, and you would think, okay, by now we're 32, like people are older, come on, like, you know, but I also have to realize that a lot of people, even though we're all coming from different places, a lot of people for the first time, we might be the first minority person that they are friends with, right? Like that's happened a lot. So Andrew and I, we pride ourselves though in being what we call chameleons. We always say exactly. We are chameleons. We can speak to anyone. We fit wherever we are positioned, and we can still be ourselves. But yeah, it has been, that definitely has been a challenge we've had to navigate through, for sure.
Yeah, I will say, just as an example, just to paint a picture, I remember we were looking for apartments in Charleston, and young lady who was taking us around to show us the apartments, asking us normal questions. Hey, where do you work? Where are you from? What do you do? And I'm like, hey, I work. I'm in the Air Force, Charleston Air Force Base. I'm in one of the flying squadrons, and her immediate reaction was, "Oh, you're a loadmaster?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, nothing wrong with loadmasters, but no, I'm a pilot. I'm also an officer." And so we get that a lot. It's just the assumption that we are obviously not something that everybody else can be, for all those things. I don't know if that's yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you. The
yeah.
right words to say, but we get that often, um, uh, for not great expectations for those things.
Right.
Just to paint a picture for one of those things.
Yeah, for sure. Charity.
No, the loadmaster thing used to drive me crazy because we're at Charleston Air Force Base, and I'm
Yeah.
telling you what, and even if and that was a frustration when I would meet new spouses I didn't know, too. Like the overwhelming majority of this squadron is pilots. So if I'm at an officer spouse event, like for the most part, just the military enlisted spouses typically hang out with enlisted spouses, and officer spouses typically hang out with officer spouses. So if I am at an officer spouse event, honey, my
Right.
husband is probably a pilot.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, you must have failed and went to the wrongs.
Right.
Is your husband a loadmaster? Not
Yeah.
today, and not since I checked, but no, and you know what? I think, it is how you respond, how you take it. After a while, initially I was upset because I would just be like, come on, like we can do great things as well.
Right.
It's in our DNA. Hey.
Right. Hey.
But yes,
Mhm.
but I don't know. I think we laugh about it now, right? Yeah.
So talk a little bit about, your career field, Andrew, and how that plays into your marriage, for people who are on that career path. What is some advice you can give young men and women that are, newlyweds and trying to navigate, that career field and the new marriage?
Sure. So I can only speak to the pilot side of the house as it pertains to mobility flying, of being in a C-17 squadron, and now being in a training squadron. So everybody's experience is going to be unique. Again, full disclosure, this is just our experience that I can talk to
Right.
for all of those things. But as a pilot, you are either constantly going to be in training, doing TDYs, on deployments, gone from home. Okay. So a tip that I can give is find some type of balance in your life, whatever that may be. If you have a family, significant other, kids, take the time to be with them and share your time with them. Again, anybody who knows me knows that I probably don't do this very well.
True story.
Just
True
being
story.
honest. The Air Force or the military in general is always going to be looking for the next upgrade, the next promotion, whatever they can do to keep you progressing. And they always want your time. There's just not enough of it. So I would say you got to find that balance for your work life, your family life, and then yourself too. You have to create time for yourself. I know I spend a lot of time at work, 10 to 12-hour work days. I get home, I'm like, I really just want some time to myself, but I have to allocate time to my wife and my son, who every single time I show up, he just screams and wants to play and greet me. And I'm like, oh man, I can't be mad at you right now because you're
Yeah.
just trying, you just want to play. You're happy to see dad, but I am super tired right now. So just finding that balance is super important. Again, with your work, family life, and yourself, whatever that may be, whether that's just reading a book, working out, listening to music, whatever you decide to do. But just find that balance. My second tip would be going along with that, take leave, take time off. Again, I do not do this very well. If any of my bosses are watching, they know, like, yeah, we yell at him all the time. Charity, we try to tell him, but he doesn't listen. So that's take leave, because the work is always going to be there. The machine is always going to keep turning with or without you. Yes, you may be able to make some people's lives a little bit easier with you being there, but at the end of the day, the work is going to get done. And if it doesn't get done, it's going to be waiting for you when you get back. So
Right.
just take the time to take leave, so that way you can decompress and get yourself right physically and emotionally.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Charity, what would you say from the spouse perspective would be some tips?
So definitely, like how I was saying, you're leaving your support system, like, just your family, friends, and everything, right? So we know that. So I would say you have to find your tribe. You are rebuilding. For sure, you have your husband, your kids, your family. But I would say, regardless if you are a new spouse or more seasoned spouse, every PCS, every time you move, you relocate, you are finding your tribe all over again. Even when your best friends who are stationed with you move, now you have to start over. So it's a constant finding of your tribe. So I would say, for sure, reach out to your squadron. Right? You have to find it. So maybe your tribe isn't with your squadron, that's okay. But reach out. You have to be intentional. Go outside of your comfort zone for sure. You can go into your community, do some volunteer work. Maybe your tribe is with your job. But you have to find your tribe. Along with that, I would say, find a good counselor. That should be a part of your tribe. Andrew and I are not shy to get some good marriage counseling. If you need individual counseling, whatever, that should be a part of your tribe, because this is unique, right? So you already know that you are going to have challenge. Marriage has challenges in itself. Now you're adding an extra layer, being a military family. Honey, if you don't have a marriage counselor, I don't know what y'all doing. Andrew and I have been, and we don't mind, we have been in and out of marriage counseling throughout, and I feel like God and marriage counseling have been the glue to help us, stick together. You go through ups and downs, you need that support. So in addition to, just your community, your girlfriends, other moms, whatever, finding that tribe in that, you need that support as well. Another thing I would say is make room for change and make room for grace. With the military, there will be change. There will be constant change. You will hear that your husband's going to deploy. I've had friends who've had their husbands deploy within a month. And it was unexpected. Andrew will say he'll be back from deployment this day. He will get home later, or he'll be TDY. And I won't know when he's coming home. When he was C-17, they would break in Hawaii. I don't know how they always broke in Hawaii, but their aircraft would break. The C-17 would break.
So you just so happened to break down in Hawaii. So you just so happen.
I just want to move on. We move beyond that. We're better now.
But half the time, it's not their fault. Not even half. Not probably 99.9% of the time, it's not their fault. So we should, just be okay with change and extend your partner grace, because they're not in control. They're in the military, and like Andrew said, it's a machine that goes, and they don't have the opportunity to, most of the time they don't have the opportunity to say no. So just making room for change and making room for grace.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, real good.
Do we have any questions in the comment section? This is some really, really good information. I just love having you guys on, talking about military life and marriage.
Oh, yeah.
This is good.
Good stuff.
And thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important, one thing you said, Charity, is therapy and God, like, was the glue for you, or is the glue for you guys. And I think that that is so key in marriage, and marriage and military, because, like you said, the unique challenges that come with that, um, and the stress. And a lot of times, especially for mothers, a lot of times they're doing things on their own, because the husband is away, for the spouses, or vice versa. So creating that support system, that village, is so helpful, because the reality of it is that we need help. We
Oh
all
yeah.
need help, especially through this journey. So creating that village, the counseling, having that outlet, getting it out, because at the end of the day, whatever comes in, it has to come out. And so having that space where you can get that out, release those stressors and talk about it and process it, I think is very important.
For sure. I mean, we spoke a lot about the challenges for sure. Were there questions in the comments? I'm sorry.
Let me see, you're good. No, let's see. Let's see. Not yet. No, no, no.
So we definitely spoke about the challenges, and it's easy to focus on challenges. But Andrew and I, we've had some amazing opportunities too. I mean, he's seen the whole world.
Mm.
He's seen the whole world. But for me, it's the people you meet. Like we've
Yeah.
met some of our best friends, and we have friends all over the country that have become what we call a part of our Air Force family. Um, I mean, my best friend and our son's godparents, we met them because of through the Air Force. So, and I really am a firm believer that God puts people in your path for a purpose, and so I definitely know that this is a part of our purpose. I wouldn't change it for anything. The people are the most important pieces of the puzzle for me. I mean, I haven't been to Hawaii, but but I would say the people do it.
Andrew,
That's
Andrew, get it together, Andrew.
I'm a little salty, a little bit.
Take leave, Andrew.
Oh my goodness, I'm trying. I'm trying.
That's hilarious.
Go ahead, tell them
That's
everywhere you've been. Where you been?
I've been to a lot of places, but I would say so just backstory, what she's talking about. I had recently just got back from deployment. I was on a week of R&R, rest and relaxation, and after that, as soon as that week was over with, got a phone call. Hey, you're going on a 2-week trip. I was like, oh man, I just got back from deployment. Like, whew, this is pretty rough. And they're just like, hey, you're the only one available. That's typically the schedulers. Any of my military family that I was watching right now, they know. Like, it's that classic call, schedulers call. You are the only one who can do this.
yeah.
So I say, okay, where are we going? And they're like, you're going to Guam and Hawaii. And I was like, oh boy, having to explain to her where
Yes.
am I going. So I told her, I said, hey, I got called for another trip. It's 14 days. And she actually handled it pretty well. I thought it was going to be a little bit more heartburn about it after getting back from deployment and only having a week off. But she was just very understanding that this was the lifestyle at this point. And she was like, okay, I'm not happy about it, but where are you going? Expecting to hear Afghanistan or any other country in the Middle East. And I'm like, Hawaii and Guam. And she's just gone. Like, I'm not going to talk. I'm just closing the door. I'm taking the dog. We're just, you think about your life experiences right now. And I just
I'm still
got to
salty.
deal with it. Yeah.
Still salty.
I did not have fun in Hawaii at all. It was
No fun.
nothing but work.
Okay.
That's hilarious. So we got some questions. Since you all have been together so long, how do you keep the fire alive in your marriage?
Mm.
So we can tell you a ton of techniques that we try to do. Um, we are still currently trying to recapture that fire, because we know, especially after our son was born, these last 3 years have changed our relationship quite a bit. So we're still trying to figure out
Mhm.
um, how we are going to re-enter dating, because right
Yeah,
now
yeah,
life is very routine. So we're still actively trying to figure that out ourselves. But right now, we are trying to put scheduled time aside of, hey, we are going to do a date night this day. We are going to just experience uh, ourselves, one another, um, for a set day, because my schedule is quite busy. And so that works for us. As much as we would love to uh, just flip of a dime, go and have a date or go see a movie, something along those lines. We just can't do it. So we have to schedule
yeah,
that time for ourselves, but also setting realistic expectations. That doesn't
for sure.
mean a date night every week. We know that's not going to
Right.
work for us. So, hey, maybe once a month. We can do that. We can do once a month. Also, for me, with the taking leave portion, right now we have an agreement to take leave at least once a quarter. So I plan to do that and stick to it. And again, that's doable for me. So
Yeah,
yeah, just planning out those things. That's how we kind of
right.
keep our fire
I
alive.
think I think that's so important. I'm piggybacking on what you're saying is being intentional. I think that's the key for any marriage because every marriage is unique. Every marriage has their unique challenges. And I think it's being intentional and communicating those expectations. What is something that we can do and what are some boundaries that we can hold for each other?
Right.
And knowing when to say no, like, nope, I can't commit to that because I have this going on. So I think it's just really being intentional is key.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I was stationed at Charleston Air Force Base for 2 terms. Did you experience any bad water problems? From my
Bad
Bad
mother.
water.
water.
Thanks,
Um,
Mom,
so
for chiming in.
specifically, like on base or just in the city of Charleston?
Possibly on base. I don't know.
Okay. No, I mean I don't know. We feel spoiled being in the southeast where they have soft water, and then we're in Oklahoma with hard water, so we're having a real hard time
Yeah.
of all the extra
Yes.
minerals that we're getting right now. So,
Right.
It's
um,
Yes.
just dry.
yeah, has not
It's
been good on the skin.
extremely hard water here.
Yeah, yeah, has not been good with the skin. So,
Yeah.
we didn't have any issues.
I
A
didn't
lot of
have to. We
Charleston.
also lived on base. That might be
Mm,
different.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. This is good, guys. Well, we really appreciate you sharing your heart, sharing your story.
Absolutely.
We know that this information is going to help so many people outside the military and inside the military. So, we appreciate your transparency and just coming on and just having this conversation. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank y'all for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Any last words from the Crawfords?
I would just say Jeremiah 29:11. God has a plan and a purpose for us, and remember that, and just
Mhm.
hold on to that. Know that even if you don't understand it or you can't see the path, you don't understand what's going on, God does. So just trust in that along the way.
Mhm.
And
That's beautiful.
for me, I just think about my first in processing day at Charleston, where there was an outgoing wing commander, and he was talking to all of us, and um, he was being very candid, and he just said, the military is not going to be in your life forever. Eventually, it's going to end. Um, so, what is a successful career in the military? This is what I think. And I just remembered what he said. He just talked about um, if you are able to leave the military with good health, finances, and family, then you've probably had a successful career. because we know on the road of all those things, a lot of that can be jeopardized and you can lose a lot of those things. But if you're able to keep those three things, then you probably had a successful career. So I'd say to all the military members who are watching this now or eventually watch this, just try to internalize that and understand it, that eventually you're going to take off the uniform. Eventually you're not going to have this rank
Yes.
anymore.
Right.
And those things are important. If you leave the military in bad health, not great. If you leave the military bad finances, again, not great. If you lose your family, unfortunately, for whatever reason, again, maybe due to the military or your career, then that's not great either. So again, find that balance and try to capture those three at the end of it.
That's good.
Yes, that's
That's
beautiful.
real good. Yeah.
One more question. Have you ever flown the B-52 while stationed in Hawaii or anything like that?
No, just the C-17 and T-6 are the only airframes that I've flown.
Okay. When you were in Hawaii, did it ever feel like you were closed in, or was it, like a?
So I was
What was
only
the
there. Yeah, so like I said, I was only there for about 2 weeks, and every day felt like a Friday or Saturday, which was really no, this was,
My bad.
That's
My
nice.
bad.
I'm not winning. I'm not winning. I'm not winning. Being transparent. So, in the sense that there's a lot of tourists there, it's very busy. There's always something going on. But again, I was only there for about 2 weeks, so I didn't live there. But I hear both ends. A lot of people love it, and there's a lot of people who get a little bit of cabin fever, island fever. I don't know what the term is, but I never experienced that. I just wasn't there long enough.
Okay. It was horrible when you were there. Just pure, just
It
horrible.
rained every day.
Yeah.
It was cold,
Yeah.
unwelcoming.
Get that.
The pineapples were rotten.
Yeah. Just nothing fresh at all.
Yeah.
Well, we love it. We thank you guys. This has been so good, and we also want to thank our viewers for chiming in
Thank you.
on this beautiful Saturday. And please feel free to reach out to them if you guys have any questions about their journey. Charity has her blog. Please share a snippet about that again, Charity.
Yes. So my blog is called A New Mommyism. That's ANEWMOMMYISM at anewmommyism.com. And it is geared toward mothers to help us support and encourage them in their journey. And I just share real life from one mom to another.
Yes. And so consider the Crawfords another resource, another, form of network. They've been through it. They're going through it. And so, for my military families out there, my newlyweds, connect.
Network.
Yeah, connect and network. That's what this journey is about. And literally, that's the idea of the military, is just staying connected, building that village, and getting through it together. So this is good. We appreciate you guys joining the conversation. Also, the link was just dropped in the comments. So if you guys want to check that out, please feel free to follow Charity. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing your story. We know, this is just good. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank
Thank you,
y'all.
Well, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend and get some rest.
All
And
right.
get
Always.
to planning.
Yeah.
Vacation soon.
Bye, y'all. Good to see you. Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya. Yes.